With eIM for IoT transforming the industry, it is really important to understand the challenges with the new architecture. I'm standing here with our eIM expert, Markus. Markus, can you please guide us through the big picture?
Yes, of course. So that is a very high-level view of the IoT eIM architecture, the new one, SGP32, with the main components, the SMDP+, eIM, and devices in two different architectural flavors. So it's pretty common sense in the industry that one of the most critical components with regards to interoperability and conformance is probably this eIM component in this architecture. Why? It is a new component. It was not there in previous architectures and specifications. And there's an expectation that many companies will build this eIM, and quite a lot of them will not be from the telecommunications domain, not be used to eSIM technology, so it will be new technology for them, which means there's always a risk of interoperability challenge between this component and the other components. So let's look at what is happening at the different components regarding interoperability conformance, which tackles this problem. So let's look first of all on the device side, where the IPA-E component is part of the EOICC. So that is the domain of global platform and global platform qualified test tools and certification. So for the EOICC without the IPA-E, there is a program and there are qualified test solutions and a compliance program. So all fine. There's also the plan to extend this to also cover the IPA-E functionality, but this is not yet done. To some extent also because the test specification from GSMA is not yet mature to cover also the IPA-E functionality. Means, yeah, we have a gap here, which is intended to close, but it's not yet closed, and there's no clarity on how this is going to happen. If you look at the device architecture flavor with a dedicated IPA-D, which is part of the device, not part of the EOICC. So this is something GCF is looking into at the moment. So they have created a work item for this to test the interfaces of the IPA-D, which in theory looks good. The challenge here is that the technical specification of the IPA-D allows so many different flavors and variants that it is unclear of what fractions of devices with an IPA-D which come to market can really be tested. So fulfilling the requirements of the test specification so that they can be tested. Means some devices may not be applicable for testing, and that is also causing the challenges for test tool vendors to think about, okay, is there a business case to deliver a test tool if this can only be applied to a fraction of the devices coming to market. And last but not least, let's look at this core component, the eIM, and what's happening there. Two things are happening there. First of all, it's the GSMA who is responsible for the test specification. And yes, there is a test specification. However, I would say it's still in a very early phase. If you look at the test specification, you can download it. It's publicly available on the GSMA website. And you look at all the test scenarios listed there. There are no details defined of how the test case should be executed. There's always a remark for future study. Means, yeah, the test topics are somehow listed, but how to test them is not really well defined as of today. And secondly, the GSMA has kicked off a certification program for the eIM. But also this is with some holes, means it's voluntary to certify your eIM, it's not mandatory. And if you go for certification, you need to state that you have tested your eIM. Yes, correct, nice and good. However, it's about self-declaration that you have tested, means there is no definition on that you need to use a test tool, a qualified test tool, that you need to have an accredited test lab doing this. So all this is not defined and not necessary. You can do this however you want, which always also creates some room for interpretation and how to deal with it. Means also that is not in the strongest position. So in total, this means we have a couple of activities, but also we have still a couple of open gaps which needs to be addressed in the future.
Thank you very much for the great overview.